The first rule of proportionate response is to ensure your response is so wildly disproportionate that the other party never ever forgets. My brother Liam was about to get a masterclass. I was standing in aisle 4 of Petropolis, a name so cheesy it made my teeth ache. My shopping cart, a vessel designed for a sensible bag of cat food and perhaps a jaunty feather on a stick, was a monument to poor impulse control. It overflowed with an impossible mountain of kibble, litter, chew toys, and something called guinea pig enrichment forage. My phone vibrated against the plastic handle, the screen lighting up with a goofy photo of Liam. It was his 17th call in the last hour. With a sense of calm that bordered on psychopathic, I jabbed the decline button and then, for good measure, the block button. Sweet, silent relief. A young employee with a name tag that read Kyle and the perpetually startled eyes of a forest creature approached me. Miss, can I, help you find something? I stared at the two giant 50-pound bags of dog food in my cart. One was for large breeds, the other for small. My gaze drifted to the cage of chirping parakeets, the stack of reptile heat lamps, the wall of aquarium filters. My life had become a multiple-choice question where every answer was wrong. Yes, Kyle, I said, my voice eerily steady. I have a question. Do you have anything for a one-eyed cat who refuses to eat next to a guinea pig? Kyle's Adam's apple bobbed. He looked at my cart, then back at me, his retail-trained smile faltering. Is this a riddle? It is my life now, Kyle. He didn't have an answer. I didn't expect him to. Pushing the groaning, squeaking cart towards the checkout, I felt a grim sense of purpose. This wasn't just shopping. This was building an arsenal. This was war. 12 hours earlier? The silence was the first sign. I dropped my suitcase by the door, back from a 48-hour work retreat that had been sold as team building, but was mostly just trust falls and lukewarm coffee. Usually, the moment my key hit the lock, I'd hear it. The frantic, happy jingle of Barnaby's collar, the click-scrape of his 3 paws on the hardwood floor as he scrambled to greet me. But there was nothing. Just the low hum of the refrigerator. Barnaby? I called out, a knot of unease tightening in my stomach. Buddy, I'm home. I walked into the living room. His favorite squeaky hedgehog lay abandoned by the couch. His water bowl was full. His bed, however, was empty. I checked my bedroom, the bathroom, even the closets. The knot of unease was now a cold, hard stone of dread. Then I saw it, sitting on the kitchen counter like a viper in the fruit bowl. A folded piece of paper, held down by a thick stack of $20 bills. My blood went cold. It was Liam's messy, looping handwriting. I knew what this was before I even read it. Lara, I'm so sorry. An emergency came up. Had to find a new home for B. He's with a great family, huge farm upstate. They paid well. This is for you. Don't be mad. The air left my lungs. Barnaby. My Barnaby. The scruffy, 3-legged terrier mix I'd pulled from a kill shelter 2 years ago. The dog who had licked my face and refused to leave my side for 3 days straight after I got laid off. The one constant, warm, living thing in my often chaotic world. Gone, sold. Replaced with a stack of cash and a lie so lazy and insulting, it felt like a slap in the face. A farm upstate? What was I, a 6-year-old in a cartoon? My hands were shaking as I pulled out my phone and stabbed at his contact. He picked up on the second ring, his voice infuriatingly cheerful. Hey, Lara, you back already? Where's my dog, Liam? I kept my voice level, a feat of Herculean self-control. Oh, yeah, look, I know you're probably upset. Upset? No, Liam. Upset is when the Wi-Fi goes out during a Netflix finale. This is several universes beyond upset. Where is he? I told you, he's with a great family. They have like acres of land. And kids to play with him. It was a really good opportunity, and I was in a jam and... His voice trailed off, a pathetic mumble of excuses. Give me their number. Give me their address. Right now. I can't, he stammered. They wanted privacy, part of the deal. The rage, which had been a cold stone, was now molten lava. The deal? You made a deal for my dog? My family? Come on, Lara, don't be so dramatic. He's just a dog. That was it. That was the line. The one that severed the last thread of sisterly affection and replaced it with something primal and arctic. He is not just a dog, I snarled, and you are no longer my brother. As a final, soul crushing flourish of idiocy, he tried to change the subject. Look, I gotta go. I'm actually on my way to the Oakwood County shelter right now. Gotta drop off the last puppy from my foster litter. See, at least I'm still out here saving animals. The self righteousness, the sheer breathtaking hypocrisy of that statement broke something in my brain. He was using his performative animal rescue hobby as a shield for selling my best friend. An idea bloomed in the wreckage of my sanity, a brilliant, terrible, exquisitely petty idea. You're right, Liam, I said, my voice now sweet as poison. You are a real hero. I hung up before he could respond. I stared at the wad of cash on my counter. Then I grabbed my keys, my wallet, and all of that blood money. If he wanted to save an animal, fine. I was about to save all of them. The Oakwood County shelter smelled of bleach, anxiety, and desperation. The air hummed with a chorus of lonely yips, mournful meows, and the oppressive silence of animals who had given up hope. It was heartbreaking. It was perfect. I saw Liam through the glass doors, handing a fluffy golden retriever puppy to a woman in a blue polo shirt. He was giving her his most charming, responsible adult smile. Our eyes met through the glass. He gave me a small, relieved wave, clearly thinking I'd come to apologize or beg for more information. Poor, deluded fool. I pushed the door open and walked past him without a word, my heels clicking on the linoleum with purpose. I didn't stop at the front desk. I walked straight back to the kennels, a woman on a holy mission of spite. The first dog I saw was a huge brindle pit bull with a constellation of old scars across his face and the saddest eyes I'd ever seen. His kennel card read Zeus, 7 years, needs to be only pet. Next to him, a frantic beagle mix threw himself against the chain link, barking his head off. Further down, in the cattery, 2 ancient-looking black cats were curled together in a single bed, their sign reading, Bonded Pair, Onyx and Jet, 12 years, must be adopted together. My heart, which I thought had been shattered into a million pieces by my brother, started to ache with a different kind of pain. These were the forgotten ones. The old, the scared, the problem animals, the ones people always walked past. I marched back to the front desk where the woman in the blue polo was now cooing at Liam's puppy. "Excuse me," I said. Both of them looked up. I pointed a thumb back towards the kennels. "I'll take them." The woman, whose name tag read Brenda, blinked. "Take who, honey?" "All of them," I clarified, enjoying the way Liam's jaw went slack. Zeus the pit bull, the noisy beagle, Onyx, and Jet. That weirdly skinny greyhound, the 3 guinea pigs, the rabbit with the 1 floppy ear, and whatever that squawking thing is in the back. "You mean Hector the parrot?" Brenda asked, bewildered. "If he needs a home, he's on the list," I said, pulling the wad of cash from my purse and slapping it on the counter. "I have this and I have credit cards. I want to adopt every single animal in this building." "Except," I paused, turning to lock eyes with my brother, letting the venom drip from my words. "That one." I pointed at the golden retriever puppy. "Leave that one. Let someone else have him." The color drained from Liam's face. "Lara, what are you doing? You can't be serious." "I have never been more serious in my entire life," I said to Brenda, ignoring him completely. "Let's start the paperwork." The next 4 hours were a blur of forms, veterinary records, and the dawning horror on the faces of the shelter staff as they slowly realized I was not, in fact, joking. Liam tried to talk to me, pleaded with me, but I just stared through him as if he were a ghost. By the time the sun started to set, my 2-door sedan was surrounded by a fleet of crates and carriers. The final bill had maxed out 2 credit cards. It was the most irresponsible, insane, and deeply satisfying thing I had ever done. Back at my apartment, the reality of my revenge hit me with the force of a physical blow. My trendy, minimalist 2-bedroom home instantly transformed into a chaotic, cacophonous, and very smelly Noah's Ark. Zeus, the scarred pit bull, immediately decided the living room rug was his mortal enemy and began a low-level growling war with it. Onyx and Jet, the senior cats, located my bedroom, declared it their sovereign nation, and hissed at me when I tried to enter. Hector the parrot, perched regally on the shower rod in the guest bathroom, discovered he could perfectly mimic the shrill beep of a smoke detector's low battery warning. He did so incessantly. "This is fine," I muttered to myself, sidestepping a puddle of what I sincerely hoped was water. "This is a perfectly normal response." The next morning, my landlord, Mr. Henderson, a man whose only joy in life was measuring the length of his tenant's lawn grass, knocked on my door. "Miss Vance," he said, peering past me into the apartment where Zeus was now attempting to sit on one of the guinea pig cages. "I received a noise complaint. Several, in fact, one of which mentioned livestock." "Hector is a parrot, not a chicken, Mr. Henderson," I said sweetly. "It's a common mistake." He was not amused. He handed me a crisp white envelope. An eviction notice. I had 30 days to vacate the premises or remedy the violation. Apparently, my lease had a strict 2-pet maximum, not a 15-pet suggestion. Meanwhile, my phone, which I had unblocked in a moment of weakness, was a constant shrine to Liam's desperation. "Lara, please call me. This is insane." The landlord called my mom. "Mom is calling me. Are you even feeding them the right food? Zeus is on a special grain-free diet." That last one almost made me laugh. Of course, he knew the scarred pit bull's dietary needs. He probably wrote the kennel card himself. I typed a reply. "Don't worry, I bought every kind of food imaginable. It's a glorious, expensive buffet. They're eating better than we did as kids." I blocked him again. The satisfaction was fleeting, quickly replaced by the overwhelming stench of rabbit urine. I was in way over my head. My grand gesture of revenge was threatening to drown me in a sea of fur, feathers, and impending homelessness. Desperate, I started an Instagram page. I called it Alara's Island of Misfit Pets, a cry for help disguised as a quirky passion project. I posted photos, Zeus looking soulful, Onyx and Jet cuddling, Hector glaring imperiously from his perch. I wrote captions laced with snark and desperation, detailing the daily chaos. To my astonishment, it went viral. People were fascinated by the story. Comments poured in. "You're my hero." "This is the level of petty I aspire to." "OMG, that one-eyed cat is so cute." A local news station wanted an interview. A GoFundMe was started by a stranger to support the misfit fleet. It was absurd. And then I got a different kind of message. A private one from a user with no profile picture and the handle at Oakwood Watcher. The message was short and chilling. "Be careful, you took a lot of his inventory." Henderson, the shelter manager, runs a side business. Private adoptions for cash, no paperwork. He favors well-behaved, already fixed dogs whose owners won't ask a lot of questions. He uses a plain white transport van. Saw it leave the shelter the same day you were there. Just after your brother left. I read the message 3 times. My blood turned to ice. Barnaby was well-behaved. Barnaby was fixed. And as far as Henderson knew, Barnaby's owner was Liam, a feckless kid who could be easily lied to. My revenge had been about hurting my brother. It never occurred to me that I had stumbled into something much, much darker. And Barnaby was caught in the middle of it. The flimsy wall of my righteous anger crumbled, replaced by a deep, gut-wrenching fear. This wasn't about a farm upstate. This wasn't about a nice family. This was about a shady shelter manager and a white van. I tried to message at Oakwood Watcher back, but the account had been deactivated. A dead end. I felt a wave of nausea. All this time, I'd been reveling in my chaotic revenge, posting sarcastic updates about Hector's vocabulary, which now included pay the rent. Barnaby could have been anywhere in any kind of trouble. The final straw was Liam showing up at my door. My 30-day eviction notice was now a 15-day notice, and the fortress of fur was starting to feel more like a prison. He must have waited for a neighbor to let him into the building because the knock was hesitant, not the confident rap of someone who expected to be welcomed. I opened the door a crack. He looked awful. Dark circles under his eyes, clothes rumpled. He flinched as Hector let out a piercing shriek from the bathroom. "Lara," he said, his voice raw, "we need to talk. For real this time." "A little late for that, wouldn't you say?" I leaned against the doorframe, trying to project an aura of cool indifference I did not feel. Zeus chose that moment to wander into the hallway behind me and let out a low, rumbling woof. Liam's eyes widened. Please, just 5 minutes. Something in his tone, the complete absence of his usual swagger, made me relent. I let him in. He stood awkwardly in the entryway, looking around at the sheer animal chaos with a kind of horrified awe. It wasn't just a jam, was it? I asked, cutting straight to the chase. The emergency. It was more than you being bad with money again? He wouldn't meet my eyes. He just stared at a spot on the wall where one of the cats had sharpened its claws. No, he whispered. It was bad, really bad. And then it all came pouring out. The story was messier and uglier than simple irresponsibility. He'd borrowed money a few months ago, not from a bank, but from a loan shark he'd met through a friend of a friend. The interest was crippling. He'd gotten behind. The threats had started, vague at first, then increasingly specific. He didn't want money anymore, Lara, Liam said, his voice cracking. He finally looked at me, and I saw real terror in his eyes. He said his client needed something else. He saw the videos I posted of Barnaby on my foster page, the one of him being so gentle with that litter of kittens. My heart hammered against my ribs. He told me his client wanted a dog just like that. Docile, quiet, no trouble. He threatened the puppy, Laura, the golden retriever puppy. He sent me a picture of my own front door. He knew where I lived. He knew I had the puppy there. Liam sank onto the arm of the couch, burying his face in his hands. He told me to tell you the farm story. He fed me the whole line. He said it was a good family and they'd give him a great life. I wanted to believe it. I swear I wanted to believe it. I stood there, frozen, the pieces clicking into place with sickening clarity. The specific request for a docile dog, the cash transaction, the white van, the shady shelter manager. It was a constellation of darkness, and my brother had been the easily manipulated pawn. This loan shark, I said, my voice dangerously quiet. Does he have a name? They call him Silas, Liam mumbled. I didn't know what to do with this information. The police? What would I say? My idiot brother sold my dog to a loan shark to pay off a debt, and now a mysterious Instagram account says the shelter manager is crooked? They'd laugh me out of the precinct. I pulled out my phone and found the screenshot I'd taken of the @Oakwood Watcher profile before it vanished. On a whim, I posted it to my Misfit Pets story with a simple caption. If you are at Oakwood Watcher, or you know them, I need to talk to you. It's about the white van. It's about my dog. For 2 days, nothing. I started to despair. I went through the motions of caring for my menagerie. The joy of my revenge completely evaporated, replaced by a constant, gnawing anxiety. Then, a new message appeared in my inbox from a brand new account at MW_investigates. I was Oakwood Watcher. Let's talk. Not online. The coffee shop on Birch Street, tomorrow. 10 a.m., come alone. The coffee shop on Birch Street was one of those places with reclaimed wood tables and artisanal scones that cost more than my hourly wage. I sat in a corner booth, my leg bouncing with nervous energy. At 10:02, a man slid into the seat across from me. He was maybe 40, with tired eyes, a salt and pepper beard, and the weary posture of someone who'd seen too much. You're Ilara, he said. It wasn't a question. I'm Marcus. You're the ex-volunteer? He gave a dry, humorless smile. Something like that. I'm a private investigator. I specialize in animal welfare cases. I've had my eye on the Oakwood shelter, and specifically Henderson, for months. Your grand gesture, let's call it, blew my quiet surveillance all to hell, but it also got my attention. I told him everything about Liam, the debt, the loan shark named Silas, the specific request for a docile dog. As I spoke, Marcus's expression grew harder, his jaw tightening. Silas, he said, the name tasting like ash in his mouth. I know him. He's not just a loan shark, he's a supplier. A supplier for what? Marcus leaned forward, his voice dropping to a low, serious tone that sent a chill down my spine. For the last 2 years, we've been tracking a high-stakes, professional dogfighting ring operating in this county. They're smart, they're brutal, and they're almost impossible to pin down. One of their biggest challenges is acquiring bait dogs. I must have looked as clueless as I felt because he elaborated. Animals they use to test and train their fighters. They don't want aggressive dogs for that. They want the opposite. Docile, gentle, submissive animals that won't fight back. They get torn apart. It's how they give their fighters a taste for blood. He paused, letting the horror of it sink in. They specifically target stolen pets and shelter animals because the paper trail is messy. A gentle, three-legged dog whose owner of record is a scared kid in debt to them? Ilara, Barnaby was the perfect target. The world swam. The coffee shop, the smell of roasted beans, the quiet chatter, it all faded into a roaring in my ears. My sweet, gentle Barnaby. My boy who is scared of thunderstorms and loved to have his one good ear scratched. The image that flooded my mind was so vile, so monstrous. I thought I was going to be sick right there on the reclaimed wood table. Revenge was a luxury I could no longer afford. This was a rescue mission. What do we do? I asked, my voice shaking but laced with a new, steely resolve. How do we get him back? Marcus looked at me, really looked at me, and saw past the sarcastic girl with the apartment full of pets. He saw the desperate woman underneath. The police are building a case, but it's all circumstantial. They can't get a warrant without a location. Silas is their link, but he's careful, Marcus said. We need a way in. We need leverage. We need bait of our own. His eyes met mine, and in an instant, I knew exactly what he was thinking. The one animal I had left behind. The one loose thread in this whole ugly tapestry. Liam's puppy. The plan was terrifyingly simple and impossibly complex. Liam, coached by Marcus and me, would have to re-engage with Silas. He'd call him, sounding desperate. He'd tell him that his crazy sister's stunt had backfired, that she was being evicted, and that he was now stuck with the one puppy she'd refused to take. He'd offer the puppy to Silas to clear the rest of his debt. Getting Liam on board was easier than I expected. The guilt had been eating him alive, and the truth about the fighting ring had shattered him. He was desperate to atone. The meeting was set for the following night, a deserted, multi-level parking garage downtown. Marcus had acquired a GPS tracker so small it could be stitched into the seam of a puppy collar. The puppy, a fluffy golden retriever now named Lucky, for reasons that felt grimly ironic, would be our Trojan horse. You're not going, Marcus told me firmly as we sat in his car, a block away from the garage. Liam was in the driver's seat of his own car, wired for sound, Lucky sleeping in a carrier in the passenger seat. The hell I'm not, I shot back. This is about my dog. This is about not getting yourself killed, he countered. Silas isn't a cartoon villain. He's dangerous. You stay here. You monitor the GPS. You are the eye in the sky. That's the job. Understood? I understood, but I didn't like it. We watched on a tablet as the blue dot representing Liam's car entered the garage. On the audio feed, we could hear Liam's ragged breathing, the soft whimpering of the puppy, the cavernous echo of the garage. A car pulled up next to him. A door opened and closed. You got him? A gruff voice asked. It had to be Silas. Yeah, he's right here. Liam's voice trembled. Let's see. There was a moment of silence. I held my breath. My heart felt like it was trying to beat its way out of my chest. He'll do, Silas's voice said. Good size. Get him in the van. We'll call it even. The van? Liam asked, his voice pitching higher. The plan was for Silas to take the puppy in his own car. A van was not part of the plan. Yeah, the van. My associate is taking him directly to the client. Problem? No problem, Liam said quickly. We heard a car door open, the puppy yelping in surprise, and then the heavy, sliding slam of a van door. My blood ran cold. It was the white van from the shelter. On the tablet, we saw Liam's blue dot remain stationary, but a new red dot, the puppy, began to move. It snaked its way out of the parking garage and headed east towards the industrial outskirts of the city. He's on the move, Marcus said, starting the car. Let's go. We followed from a safe distance, a silent, rolling dread accompanying us down the dark highways. The red dot led us to a place that looked like a scar on the landscape, a sprawling, derelict warehouse complex surrounded by a rusty chain-link fence, miles from any residential area. The van pulled through a gate and vanished behind the main building. This is it, Marcus said, pulling the car into the shadows of a neighboring abandoned lot. He was already on the phone, relaying the address to his contact on the police force. "They'll be here in 20. Stay in the car, Alara. I mean it. This is where it gets real." But as I watched him get out and scout the perimeter, all I could think about was Barnaby, somewhere inside that brick and metal tomb. 20 minutes felt like a lifetime. Staying in the car felt like a betrayal. I wasn't the eye in the sky anymore. I was a goddamn boots on the ground. I opened the car door. The night air was cold and smelled of rust and damp earth. Against every sane instinct and Marcus's explicit orders, I slipped out of the car. The distant wail of sirens was just beginning to cut through the silence. It wasn't fast enough. I found a gap in the fence, the metal links bent back just enough for a person to squeeze through. My heart was a frantic drum against my ribs, but my mind was eerily clear. Find Barnaby. That was the only thought. The sounds from inside the warehouse were a nightmare made real. A chorus of frantic, terrified barking, punctuated by a guttural snarling and the sickening shouts of men. I crept along the side of the building, my eyes searching for any point of entry. I found a grimy ground floor window, the glass already cracked. Using a rock, I carefully knocked out a large enough shard to reach my hand through and unlatch it. I slid inside, dropping into a small, dark storage room. The stench hit me first. A foul mix of feces, fear, and blood. Peeking through the door, I saw the main floor. It was a scene from hell. A makeshift plywood ring stood in the center under harsh industrial lights. Men were crowded around it, yelling, waving cash. Inside the ring, I couldn't look. I wouldn't. My focus narrowed. Along the far walls were rows of cages, dozens of them, stolen pets, lost souls, the inventory. I scanned them, my eyes darting from one terrified face to the next. A beagle. A golden retriever who looked heartbreakingly like Lucky. A boxer. And then I saw him. He was in a small cage at the very end of the row, as far from the noise as possible. He was curled into a tight ball, trembling. He was thinner, his scruffy coat matted with filth, but it was him. It was my Barnaby. "Barnaby," I whispered, my voice choked. His one good ear twitched. He lifted his head and his brown eyes met mine. For a second, there was no recognition. Just fear. Then, a faint, hopeful thump of his tail against the metal tray. Thump, thump, thump. At that exact moment, the main doors of the warehouse burst open. "Police! Nobody move! Get on the ground!" Chaos erupted. Men shouted, tried to run, were tackled by tactical officers. The world became a whirlwind of flashing blue and red lights, shouting, and the panicked barking of the dogs. It was the perfect cover. While all eyes were on the ring, I ran to Barnaby's cage. It was padlocked. Of course it was. Frantic, I looked around and saw a heavy crowbar leaning against a stack of tires. It took 3 jarring, shoulder-wrenching attempts before the lock snapped. I swung the door open. He practically fell into my arms, licking my face with a desperate, whimpering whine. I buried my face in his fur, tears streaming down my cheeks, ignoring the grime and the smell. He was alive. He was safe. He was mine. I scooped him up. He felt so light and held him tight, turning my back to the chaos as officers swarmed the room, cuffing Silas and his cronies. I saw Marcus directing a team toward the cages, a look of grim satisfaction on his face. He saw me, shook his head in exasperation, but then gave me a small, approving nod. Weeks later, the dog-fighting ring was front-page news. Henderson, the shelter manager, was arrested after Silas flipped on him, detailing years of cash-for-dogs transactions. My apartment building's owners, upon reading the heroic, and heavily edited for the news, version of the story, quietly rescinded my eviction notice. But it was too late. I couldn't stay there. We couldn't stay there. The GoFundMe, started by a stranger to help a crazy lady with 15 pets, had ballooned into something incredible. With that money and the help of a legitimate no-kill rescue Marcus put me in touch with, I found loving, vetted homes for most of the misfit fleet. Zeus went to a veteran with a huge farm who understood his scars, inside and out. Onyx and Jet were adopted by a quiet, elderly woman who wanted nothing more than to spoil them rotten. But I couldn't let them all go. I used the rest of the funds to put a down payment on a small, unassuming house with a big, fenced-in yard. It wasn't trendy or minimalist. It was perfect. My new roommates were Barnaby, of course. Hector the parrot, because who else would tolerate him? The one-eyed cat, who I'd named Wink. And the perpetually nervous Great Dane, who I'd named Walter and who had appointed himself Barnaby's personal giant bodyguard. My life was still chaotic, but it was a happy chaos. It was a life filled with the click of claws on a new floor, the soft purr of a cat on my lap, and Hector's new favorite phrase, learned from watching daytime TV: "You are not the father." As for Liam, his cooperation earned him a plea deal: 2 years of probation and 500 hours of mandatory community service. Marcus had pulled some strings to make sure those hours were served at the very rescue that had helped me rehome my animals. I'd see him there sometimes when I dropped off donations, cleaning kennels or hauling heavy bags of food, his face set with a quiet determination I'd never seen in him before. We didn't talk much, but the furious, icy wall between us had begun to thaw. One sunny Saturday afternoon, I was sitting on my new back porch, watching Barnaby, flanked by the ever-watchful Walter, chase a bright red ball across the grass. He was still a little skittish around loud noises, but the light was back in his eyes. He was whole again. We both were. My phone chimed. It was a text from a number I didn't have saved, but I knew who it was. It was a picture of Lucky, the golden retriever puppy, looking much bigger now, sitting proudly next to a smiling little girl. And beneath it, a simple message: he got a great home. For real this time. His name is Gus now. I stared at the picture for a long moment. I thought about the fury that had started it all. It felt like a lifetime ago, like a story about a different person. I pulled up Liam's contact in my phone. His name was still there, right below the red blocked notification. My thumb hovered over it. Then I pressed unblock. I didn't call, not yet. But I typed a short reply. He looks happy. I sent it. A fragile truce, a beginning. I put my phone down and looked out at my yard. My dog, my giant nervous dog. My one-eyed cat sunning himself on the railing. My obnoxious parrot squawking from the living room. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. Turns out they're wrong. Sometimes it's best served with a side of kibble, a whole lot of poop bags, and the accidental discovery that what you were really fighting for wasn't vengeance at all. It was a second chance. For all of you.